And we'll start here in the UK, where an attempt is being made to force the full publication of the Sue Gray report into parties in and around Downing Street during periods of COVID-19 lockdown. It comes as dozens of people contacted by police over the issue approach a deadline to respond to questions that they've been asked by officers, and that includes Prime Minister Boris Johnson himself. Many of his own Conservative MPs say if he were to be found to have broken COVID lockdown laws by attending parties and were to be issued with a fixed penalty notice by police, he'd have to resign, they say, but he's expected to fight to stay in his job whatever happens. What's not clear is when the police investigation concludes whether dozens of photographs which formed part of inquiries will be published by police or by civil servant Sue Gray. Her report was only partially published last month because of the police probe being ongoing. She's expected to send a complete version to Downing Street once the police finished theirs. So the opposition Liberal Democratic Party is planning to try and force the full publication of the Sue Gray report with all of those pictures contained in it. An upcoming motion at the House of Commons next week is how they'll try and get there. Our correspondent Giles Gibson joins me now from London. Giles, tell us exactly what the Liberal Democrats are trying to do here, and does it stand any chance of success?
Well, Ollie, in the rather quaint language of the British Parliament, this is known as a humble address motion. And what it would mean if it successfully gets through the British Parliament is that ministers would have to release a specific set of documents, including the full report by Sue Gray, within 2 days of the Metropolitan Police wrapping up their investigation. Of course, Ollie, the problem for the Liberal Democrats here tabling this motion is that they only have 13 members of Parliament, just over a dozen members of Parliament. So they simply just don't have the numbers to get this through the House of Commons. There is a chance that Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition Labour Party, who of course has many more MPs at his disposal in the House of Commons, there's a chance that he could table some sort of a similar motion in the coming days once Parliament returns from recess, trying to force the government's hand here in terms of releasing the Sue Gray report in full. In the meantime, as you were mentioning, there is this deadline coming up for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He was sent a questionnaire by the Metropolitan Police as part of their investigation. We understand that that was received by 10 Downing Street last Friday. The Prime Minister has 7 days to respond to that questionnaire. So that means really in the next 24 or 36 hours or so, Boris Johnson will have to have responded to that, although it's not clear after that how long it's going to take the Metropolitan Police to wrap up their investigation. And we should also just make clear here that receiving a questionnaire from the Metropolitan Police doesn't mean that you will definitely get some sort of a fine, some sort of a fixed penalty notice as it's known.
And Giles, while I've got you there, UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is in Ukraine today. What's she trying to achieve with this latest visit?
Well, she issued yet another warning to Russia about the build-up of troops on the border with Ukraine, this time in an article that she wrote in the Daily Telegraph newspaper here in the UK, saying that Western allies, including the UK and the US, should not be lulled into a false sense of security by these claims from the Russian Defense Ministry that they are actually pulling some of their forces back from the border, moving them back to their bases. They've released video footage as well online that they say shows tanks and other forces moving away from border areas. We've also heard from James Heappey. He is the UK's Minister for the Armed Forces, saying in an interview earlier on that Russia is guilty of what he called a disinformation campaign, saying that what they are seeing in terms of intelligence on the ground is the exact opposite to what the Russians are claiming. The UK minister saying that they are actually, the Russians, sending more troops towards the border rather than pulling troops back and de-escalating this situation. And really, Ollie, just the wider question here is whether this pattern that we've seen developing in the last week or two is really sustainable for several more weeks or several more months. Western leaders and Western foreign ministers shuttling around Europe, holding talks with the Ukrainians and the Russians, trying to find some sort of a solution here. Can that keep on going for the next several weeks or several months? Or does there need to be some sort of a potential temporary solution just to tamp down tensions a little bit here so that there can be longer term talks perhaps?